John, can you do a video on how to build a very simple, easy aquarium stand? Yes, I can. That's what we're talking about on this episode of Tank Talk. Hey folks, it's John with KGTropicals.com. It's Sunday, October 12th, 2014. Welcome to this edition of Tank Talk. Today we're going to talk all about building an aquarium stand. We're going to do it cheap. We're going to do it easy. We're going to do it to where even if you don't have any skills when it comes to woodworking, you can build this aquarium stand with a few simple tools and a little bit of lumber that you can pick up at your local hardware store. It's absolutely a piece of cake. So before we get into actual construction, let's talk about some of the tools that you're going to need to get this done. Okay, you don't need a bunch of advanced tools to build this stand, folks. I start off with a couple of drills. Mine came as a set. If you don't have two drills, that's okay. But like I said, mine were a set, so I'm fortunate I have two. I like to have one for drilling the pilot holes and one for actually inserting the screws. It's an impact driver. It makes it very easy. But if you only have one drill, that's fine. If you don't have any drills, you can just do it with a screwdriver. So obviously we're going to need a tape measure to measure out our cuts. We're going to need 2.5-inch coarse thread drywall screws for actually putting this whole thing together, and then some framing squares. You can borrow these from a friend. If they don't have them, you can buy one. They're very cheap. You're also going to need something to cut the wood, obviously, which I don't have shown here. And also, if you are working by yourself, you might want to grab a set of wood clamps. You'll see me use them later on in this video. They work great if you need an extra set of hands, but they're absolutely not critical to have. It just makes things a little easier. Okay, I know it's not the prettiest drawing in the world, but this is the best that I can do for you. Hopefully you can see and understand what I got going on here. So I made this nice little tank with some albino peacocks in it to show you how this tank is going to look when it's actually built. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about was what gives this stand its strength. And the main reason why this design works so well is because of these boards right here that you see the red arrows pointing to. Now, the weight of the tank, which you see sitting there, it's resting directly on those boards, and the weight is actually taken all the way down to the floor. I'm going to go back and forth here so you can see that the tank is sitting on the shelf, which is supported by the boards that are represented by the red arrows. And then it goes actually straight through the bottom shelf there and continues all the way down to the floor. So you can see that the weight is directly all the way down to the floor. So I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but that is why this is so strong. It works extremely well, and it carries the weight very well for this. And it's simple 2x4 construction. You can pick up 2x4s anywhere, dirt cheap, couple dollars a piece. This stand shouldn't cost you any more than $25 or $30, depending on the cost of lumber where you live. And one of the questions that I'm going to get is, do I need to use pressure treated lumber because we're dealing with a box full of water? The answer is no. You do not need to use pressure-treated lumber. Is it going to hurt it if you do? No, but it's not required. So, all right, let's take a look at the top view here. And this might look a little bit confusing, but I did label it here for you. If you're looking at it from above, straight down, you can see how this is built. It's basically two frames that are held together with the side pieces that go from the floor all the way up to the tank. So, looking at this design here, when we're going to start to measure things out and get our cuts, one of the first things that we need to do is we need to measure the tank. And for this stand that I'm going to build in this video, it's to hold a 75-gallon tank. My 75-gallon tank that I built this for measures 48.5 inches long by 18.5 inches deep. It's advertised as 48 by 18, but they're a little bit longer. What I like to do when I'm getting my cut list together and when I'm designing this stand, I like to give it about a 1/2 inch extra so that you have a 1/4 inch all the way around, reveal, if you will. So the tank is actually sitting on the stand, not hanging over it or overlapping or anything like that. It just makes it look a little bit more formal. We'll get into that a little bit more as we go on. But this drawing here is basically just giving you the dimensions of the tank. So let's move on. These pieces that are on the side are going to be the height of your stand, the total height. Now, this particular stand that I'm building is 32 inches high. There's a reason for that, and you will see that in a future video. But this stand is being built to match the height of a couple of other stands. So it was 32 inches. A lot of people will go 30 inches, which is the height of an average dining room table. Some people will go 36 inches because that's the height of a countertop. It's all in what you want to do. If you go any higher than 36 inches, I would worry a little bit about the thing teeter-tottering. I don't know, that would get a little bit risky, but 36 inches is kind of as high as I would go. However, one of the things that I want you to think about is if you are putting a tank below this tank. I mean, I'm building this stand for just one tank, but if you're going to put a tank below, you're going to need to redo your measurements here, making sure that you give yourself room above the bottom tank to be able to get in there and do your work and feed the fish and do your water changes and stuff like that. So you need to think about that. But for this video, I'm building this stand just to hold one tank on the top. So let's get into the cut list and talk about the different components, the different pieces, and then the lengths that they're going to be cut. So you have your two shelves. You've got your shelf, front and back pieces. That'll be your top shelf and your bottom shelf. These pieces are going to be the length of the tank, which is 48.5 plus a half of an inch. Again, because I want it to be a little bit bigger than what the tank is, the actual tank of the size, or the actual size of the tank. So we're going to add a half of an inch. So instead of cutting my boards exact at 48.5, I'm going to cut them at 49. So you see the number one thing on the list there is 4 cut at 49.5 or 49 inches. That's going to serve as the fronts and backs for the two shelves. Then we have the uprights, which again are going to be whatever the total height of your stand is. You can see, I've got on the right bottom there, you see the arrow pointing to the uprights times 4. You need 4 of them, all 4 corners. And you're going to cut those to whatever height or whatever the total height of your stand is. And in this case, it's 32 inches. Then we're going to need our shelf sides. Now you see this represented by the red arrow. And the reason why it's red is because in this drawing, you can't see them. Let's go back real quick. If you look at the two that are marked as sides, it's the board right below that. It connects the front and the back. Those are going to be the side pieces that are represented by the red arrow here. And those are going to be 16 inches. The reason for that is the tank measures 18.5 inches. Now, we're going to have the 2x4 front and the 2x4 back. So we're going to, and they're called 2x4s, but they're actually 1.5 inches by 3.5. So we're going to subtract 3 inches because we've got 2 of them. And then we're going to add our half of an inch. So that's going to give us a total length of 16 inches. 18.5 plus a half gives us 19, minus 3 gives us 16. I am brave for doing math on this video. Now the upper inside supports, you see them on the left, the arrow is pointing to them. That is where all of the strength is coming from. That is what is supporting the weight. So this is going to be the piece that's between your bottom shelf and your top shelf. And again, this is where all the weight's coming from, or all what's supporting all of the weight are the upper inside supports and the lower inside supports. So your upper inside supports, we wanted to have a 19-inch opening there between the two shelves. That gives us enough room to be able to store just about anything we want in there. But that is going to be your critical measurement. If you're going to be putting another tank below, you're going to need to adjust that measurement. Even if you're putting a tank that's the exact same size as the one you're putting on top, you have to realize that all of your measurements are going to be a little bit different. Just use this as a guide to give you an idea of what you'll need to be cutting. And then our lower inside supports, it's going to be, for this particular stand, they're going to be 6 inches. That's just what it is. And you'll see in the demonstration video when I put this together that I actually do trim a little bit off of it. It's kind of hard to explain, but that is your cut list. You're going to be cutting 4 for your front and back of your shelves. You're going to be cutting 4 uprights, 4 of your shelf sides. That'll all be the exact same length. All of these will be the exact same length. You're going to need 4 upper inside supports and 4 lower inside supports. And that's all you're going to need. So now we get to the fun part. Now we get to cut our boards. I have a miter box here, a power saw. You may not have this. You may have to cut these by hand. It's totally up to you. But I've got my saw sitting on a couple of sawhorses with a couple of 2x4s going across just to give myself a little workbench area. And what I'm doing here is I'm using just scrap 2x4s that I have sitting around, but I've built tons of racks, so I've got a lot of spare 2x4s sitting around. And so I've got a lot of scraps and stuff sitting around. But one of the reason why I'm showing this in real time here is because I wanted to show you a little trick that I like to use for cutting 2 boards to the exact same length. You gang them up together like that and cut one end. And so that they're both cut exactly the same length, then mark the top board like I'm doing there, and then cut them both at the same time. This is how you ensure that your boards are cut the exact same length. Now, one of the things that I want to tell you here is that I've been doing this a very long time. I've been cutting wood. I've been building things like this a lot. I did it professionally for 10 years. I do things very quickly, and it may look like I'm being a little bit reckless and I'm not keeping safety in mind and my fingers might not be in the right place and all of that. Don't pay attention to that, folks. That's just me being very comfortable with what I'm doing. I've done it a few times, and so it might look like I'm getting in there and I'm putting my fingers in places that they shouldn't be and all of that. Just please be safe when it comes to doing this stuff. You're dealing with a blade that can cut your hand off in no time at all, and you won't even know it happened until you wake up from being knocked out by something like this. But you can seriously injure yourself on a piece of equipment like this. So just please be careful and don't necessarily do things the way that I'm doing it, because you may just end up losing a digit or a limb. So I am not going to show you the entire thing here in real time because that would be ridiculous. But what I'm going through and doing is cutting all of the pieces, like I gave you on the list before. I'm cutting them all down, 4 pieces of each length, getting all of my pieces set up and cut all, as accurately as possible. This is a 2x4 stand that's probably going to be painted or even covered up with a piece of cloth or something like that. If it's not absolutely perfect, that's okay. You're not building a fine piece of furniture here. You're just building something that's going to hold your aquarium. You're trying to save some money and get rid of some of those scraps that you have sitting around in your garage or in your dad's garage or something like that. So it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but to keep things easy, it's best to do your best to cut things all to the exact same length so that you're at least starting from a good point. So now we are moving on to the assembly. I've got all of my pieces cut here. And again, this is not the prettiest work environment here, but what I'm trying to show you here is we've got our front and back of our shelves. You see me flipping them around there. I'm basically just trying to pick the prettier sides to figure out what's going to be my front and what's going to be my back. I'm going through and I'm drilling pilot holes. These are so that the wood will not split when I run my screws through there. They're nice and long, 2.5 inch drywall screws. I use coarse thread because this is soft wood, so they tend to hold a little bit better. And one of the things that you're going to notice is that I'm not using glue. Reason for it? This is getting a little nerdy here when it comes to woodworking, but you're gluing end grain to long grain, and that is a glue connection that does not work. The glue would serve absolutely no purpose in this type of an application. So you're not going to see me using any glue. And let me just tell you, I have built hundreds, or I shouldn't say hundreds of racks. I have built racks for hundreds of tanks. That's a better way of saying it. And I've never used glue, not even once. Not for a rack like this. So you don't need to worry about glue. If you're going to use wood glue, is it going to hurt things? No, but it's not really all that necessary. If it makes you feel better though, go ahead and do it. So what you see me doing here, I'm lining them up, making sure everything's nice and straight, and I am working by myself. So I am going to utilize some wood clamps. These are very cheap, maybe, I don't know, 12, 15 bucks a piece. If you want to buy a couple of them, I'm sure you'll find other things to use them for. In this situation, it's really just serving as an extra pair of hands for me. It holds everything straight, keeps everything in line while I screw it all together, since I am working by myself. So I'm going to continue to go through here with you, showing you the building of this first frame, and then we're going to go ahead and put it in fast forward so that you don't have to watch me do the same thing over and over again. I'm taking my square here and I'm making sure that the insides are good and square. Having it square is very important. You may notice as we go on in this video that you're going to see a little bit of wobble on the shelves, and that's okay. It might not look all that pretty while I'm putting it together. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, but it's okay because the weight of the tank and everything is going to weigh that down and straighten everything right up. But once I got everything square and everything lined up, then I go through and tighten my clamps nice and tight, and then I go through and put all of my screws in. I do 3 screws in each corner. Nice, long, beefy drywall screws. They're going to hold this thing together really well. One thing that I want to tell you is I've built, like I said, I've put hundreds of tanks on racks like this, and I've never had one fail. I've never had one fall apart. I've never had one come crashing down or anything like that. So you don't necessarily need to worry about that. So let's fast forward here a little bit and get to some of the better parts, because there's no reason for you to watch me do the same thing again. So here is where you see it may look a little bit crooked. It might look a little bit wobbly. Don't panic. It's okay. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be good to go once we get all this whole thing back together. So now what I'm doing here, I have the top shelf upside down. So I'm building this stand upside down, and I'm going to attach the first upright. Drilling some pilot holes here. Again, we don't want to split the wood. That can completely destroy the project, and of course it can weaken the wood. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to get my screws started, and then I'm going to use a clamp to hold it in place, just trying to hold it as straight as possible. And again, once this is done, I'll fast forward and make it so that we don't have to watch me do the same thing 4 times. But here I'm going to put my little clamp on here. And again, all this is doing is serving as another pair of hands. Working by myself, that's where wood clamps are absolutely critical. Now, in general cabinet making and woodworking, clamps would usually be the thing that you would use to hold joints together while you're waiting for glue to dry. That's not the case here because we're not using any glue or anything. We're just holding this thing together with screws. So the clamps are only serving as an extra set of hands. If you don't have the clamps, you can still do it. You can still build one of these things. I've done it without the clamps, but I wanted to kind of look a little professional here, so I went ahead and incorporated the clamps. Using a framing square here to make sure that we're nice and straight and square to the table. My workbench is square and flat, so I know that if it's square there, then it should be square once everything goes back together. And now I'm just screwing in everything. And again, we will fast forward so that we can get to where we have all 4 of the legs put on. And now here we are. We have all 4 legs in place. It is time to insert or install, attach, however you want to say it, the inner supports. I'm looking at these now. I'm just kind of picking the best ones, picking the face side, the side that's going to look the best. And I'm going to go ahead, like I do in all of my other stuff, I'm pre-drilling. This is where the 2 drills comes in handy because I'm not switching things back and forth. So I'm going to pre-drill all of these, just holding it on with 2 screws. It doesn't take 80 screws or 80 nails to hold this thing together. It's a few screws in each joint, and it holds everything together pretty well. Now, to hold these in place, I'm just going to hold them with my hands. It's not, it doesn't, it's not going to slip out or anything like that. Let's go ahead and fast forward until I get all of my screws in place. Just pre-drilling them and getting them all in place so that it's, again, they're in there and I don't have to search for a screw while I'm holding this thing in place. Now I have all of my screws in place. They're all kind of pre-started so that they're in there and I can just hold the board in place and put the screw the rest of the way in. Very simple, very easy. Again, you want it to be nice and tight. You want it to be as exact as possible, but it might not look perfect. That's okay. Again, don't be your own worst enemy here. This is not something that we need to start going and getting a bunch of glue and all that kind of stuff. This is very easy. We're just holding everything together with screws. Now, you saw me step away there for a second. The impact drill goes through batteries pretty quick. These are about 5 years old, these drills, so had to switch my battery. But I'm just going through here. I'm installing these uprights. Very simple to do. Lining it up, and you can see how if this thing was upright and not upside down like it is, the weight of that top shelf would be sitting on these uprights. Now it is time to install the bottom shelf. Again, we're building this thing upside down. So now the bottom shelf is going to go in, and I think I might wrestle with this a little bit to get it in place here, but we're just going to set it down and we're going to get it up nice and tight against those uprights that we just installed. And there I am just battling this thing, wrestling. And again, to line everything up, we're just doing it by eye. You see it wobbling a little bit. Don't panic over that. This is dimensional lumber. This is framing lumber. It's never perfectly square and perfectly flat. So it's almost impossible when using this kind of lumber to get everything absolutely perfectly straight. Don't panic over that. It's gonna get straight once we get it all put together. So once I have this bottom shelf in place, I'm just going to make sure everything lines up. I'm going to hold it in place and I'm going to screw it all together. So this is the last pieces here. This is where, again, all of the weight has gone down those uprights that we just installed. It's going through the bottom shelf, and then it's going to be supported by these last pieces that we're going to install. I'm just down there pre-drilling them now. But, and I think I'm switching batteries again because I didn't have the greatest charge, when I got started with this. But what you see here is I'm going to hold this up. I'm going to check the length of it and I'm going to trim a little bit off. And that's what I was telling you before. When you cut these uprights, the bottom pieces, things may not be absolutely perfect when you put the whole thing together. You might need to trim a little bit off of it. Trust me when I tell you, you're going to want to do this. You're going to want to make sure that your side supports and your that lower inside support, you're going to want to make sure that they're the same length as the side supports, just to keep everything nice and level and perfect. And here you have it, the finished product sitting in the shop. We'll see a tank on it here in a second, but this is what it's going to look like, folks. And you can see I showed this side here where I'm going to use my finger and show you the weight when it sits on the tank is going to go straight down, all the way down to the floor on these boards. That's what makes this thing very sturdy and very strong. I've built so many stands like this. I can't even tell you how many, and they've never failed me once. So it's a very simple thing, and it might not look the prettiest, but it will work for you, I promise. And here it is in its new home. It is a very secret project that we're working on right now. We'll talk more about it in a future episode, but here it is. It's got the tank sitting on it. Like I said, a 75-gallon tank. And it has found its new home. You can see that it is not wobbly. It's sitting there perfectly flat, and everything's wonderful about it. Now, again, seeing the bottom corner of the tank here, you can see how that weight just goes straight down. Well, you can't see it, but you know what I'm talking about. It goes straight down to the floor. I keep talking about that because that is what makes this tank so strong. You are putting weight straight down to the floor. You're not relying on screws or particle board or anything like that to hold this thing together. It's rock solid, and it's going to hold the weight perfectly. Like I said, I've built it for 150-gallon tanks before using the exact same design, of course, different measurements, and it's never failed, not even once. And I've actually put tanks on it, taken it down, moved it, and put it back up again, and it's still perfectly fine. You can do this, folks, if you have a few tools and a little bit of patience and, some extra lumber laying around. You can build a stand just like this. It will work for you for years, and you'll have some fun doing it too, because you'll be saving money and you'll be proud that you've actually put something like this together. So enjoy it. Get yourself some scrap lumber, grab your screws and a tape measure and a saw, and get to cutting and build you one of these stands. I promise you it will not fail, and you'll have a whole lot of fun building it. So thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope this works out for you, and we'll see you next week.